Why was the Maguad case getting compared to the film Orphan? You might have realized that real life is often a lot stranger than fiction on this channel. In this case from the Philippines, which some have compared to the plot of the film Orphan, it's pretty clear that the weirdest events do happen in real life. Because even that horror movie makes more sense than what was going on in the lives of this picture-perfect family. Cruz Maguad was a teacher based in Cotabato in the Philippines, married to Lovella, a principal at an elementary school. They had a teenage son and a daughter who was about to graduate as a doctor. They'd also adopted a 17-year-old girl who'd been living with the family since July 2021. On December 10th, 2021, Cruz was out at work as usual, but a bit after 2 p.m., he received a terrifying message. There was someone ransacking the house where his children were. Cruz rushed home and even busted down the door to see what was going on. He couldn't get in at the front and had to go around to the back, but he saw a bloodied blanket. To his horror, the place seemed to have been torn apart. But as he got further inside, shouting for his children, he found them on the floor. It was a dreadful discovery. They weren't moving. Then he heard someone calling for mom and dad. His adopted daughter was coming out of the bathroom. Her hair was still wet from bathing. She calmly said, "Welcome home, Dad." And well, that was pretty weird because she'd never called him that before. But he probably didn't have time to even consider that because his 2 children had died under very mysterious circumstances, and the prime suspect was the least likely person he'd ever suspect of doing something this awful. It wasn't very long before the police grew totally suspicious as well. Before long, they'd pulled the adopted daughter in for questioning. But why? Hadn't she been the one in danger too? Just what the heck was going on? Cruz Maguad had discovered the broken bodies of his son and daughter in the family home. Their names were Chrisville Louis, known as Boy, and Griswell Gwyn. They had suffered some shocking, disfiguring injuries. If you've already heard about this case, you've probably already seen some of the terrible morgue photos of how they looked. But I totally don't recommend seeking them out. Seriously, you guys, and obviously, I'm not going to show them here. They're genuine nightmare fuel, and were also very illegal and should never have been shared anywhere. I can't imagine what it was like for their dad to find them like that. It's so awful. But who had done this to them? The violent attack and apparent robbery was first blamed on 3 random men. The adopted daughter said that they had broken in to rob the family home and she was the only survivor because she'd hidden away in a cabinet. Then the robbers took the lives of the 2 Maguad siblings. Whoever had attacked them had used a baseball bat and a hammer to end their lives. Pretty brutal, right? But the girl's version of what happened just didn't make sense to the investigators. She'd already posted to social media calling for help, but these messages had gone just as Mr. Maguad arrived home. Maybe you can already see why they're having issues believing her story. Why on earth would she be having a bath or a shower when the bodies of her adopted siblings are in the next room? Really not something you do, is it? It's beyond weird. What's even stranger is that someone had already covered up poor Grizzle's head with a towel, and it actually seemed to have happened a few hours before the adopted daughter had apparently called for help. The weapons that were used only added to the mystery. The hammer and baseball bat had come from inside the family home, and only the adopted daughter and the parents had known where the hammer was kept. It had recently been hidden in their bathhouse. That's not exactly somewhere that a criminal would find it by accident, you know? As all the evidence mounted up, it pointed to one very unlikely suspect. Yes, that's exactly why the police brought the adopted Maguad daughter in for questioning. But who exactly was she? And just why was the Maguad case getting compared to the film Orphan? It's similar in one way. The girl had been adopted into a happy, welcoming family home. The 2 siblings had also been really popular, and it's easy to see why. Crystal was a part of the CFC Youth for Christ Church and was studying to be a doctor. She even reposted alerts about lost cats, and she seemed like a really wonderful person to know. Sadly, her Facebook page is now just a memorial. Her baby brother, known as Boy Boy, often danced with her on TikTok, and he always looked really happy. Other than a slight resemblance, I think the comparison to the Orphan movie is not accurate. But it did get this case a lot of attention, which could be good or bad. Not long after the siblings' bodies were discovered, the case went viral on TikTok and Twitter. Before long, the hashtag Justice for Maguad siblings was trending hard. A lot of public suspicion fell on the adopted daughter. There was a lot of anger that the authorities weren't publicizing the case enough. Nobody was being told what was going on, or that's how it seemed. Basically, everyone wanted to know why the adopted daughter wasn't already being charged. I mean, there are procedures the police are supposed to follow, and this kind of thing can take time to do it right. But despite the fact that she was a teenager and still a minor, the adopted girl's name got leaked all over the internet. And because she's a minor, I'm not going to spill that tea here. It's pretty easy to find out, trust me, and it's probably not a great thing it was so spread around. It's really not fair on the friends and family who were still dealing with what had happened, right? The authorities and the Maguad parents asked the public to stop speculating and posting conspiracy theories. This was all still being investigated, but that didn't seem to stop any of it going on. One of their friends on Facebook even wrote that only the court can determine the perpetrators of this crime, and not our posts. Facebook is not the proper venue. But we do know the girl went by a fake name, or alter ego, on Facebook. A few of her posts were kind of disturbing, like here. The "when I try to comfort someone" post was like right after Cruz Maguad found his 2 children killed at home. Remember, that's when she was coming out of the bathroom. Yeah, pretty creepy. But the creepiest part is how normal she seems to be when she's hanging out with the others. Even if I can't name her here, you have to wonder, who is she? And had she shown any signs of being, unstable before she did this horrible thing? Well, the girl they adopted had stolen a large sum of cash from the church they all attended, but the Maguad family had chosen to forgive her. Now, not gonna lie, it's been tricky to get a lot of reliable info on this case just because it's so recent and there are so many rumors. But the crazy case still isn't over yet, and people want justice for them both. The comments about what happened are usually pretty angry. Life sentence, no pardon to the killer. While other people wanted to wait and see what the authorities said. She may be suspicious, but innocent until declared not. Let's call for justice, but stop hating her because we're depriving her the same justice we're clamoring for. But eventually, what really happened would be pretty clear to everyone, mostly at least. 6 days after the siblings were found, and after all that loud speculation and reveals of disturbing photographs, the adopted daughter admitted what people had suspected all along. She finally came clean, and she said she committed that awful attack. And why? Apparently due to her jealousy and need for attention from her adopted parents, which is why she called them mom and dad for the very first time, right after the bodies were discovered. Police had also found her bloodied clothes and underwear in a nearby canal. One part it hasn't shaken off is that similarity to Orphan, a film from 2009. To be honest, the only real similarity the case has with the movie is that the family took somebody in who was totally disturbed. And while the Maguad family's adopted girl was dangerous, as far as I know, she isn't also a 40-year-old woman pretending to be in 8th grade. Otherwise, it all sounds like the internet was right. So, apart from a trial, the case looked like it was all over. But that hasn't stopped people trying to contact the Maguad siblings in the afterlife. Guess they have pretty good reception over there? Your mileage on spirit boxes may vary. They apparently translate the words from beyond the grave, but I wouldn't want to bet a trial on what it spits out. Would you? Jury's totally still on that one. In the meantime, Grizzle Gwyn and her brother have been laid to rest, and I still can't imagine what it's like for their poor parents.
I want to hug them.
Their mom posted a long tribute in early January, and it ended with, "Please continue to pray with us for God's grace and intervention to finally get justice to bring peace to all of us." The local governor, Emmy Lou Mendoza, said, "What is saddening here is that the primary suspect is an adopted adopted family member who was treated like a blood relative and cared for well by the family. Of course, what happened to the Maguad siblings is a huge tragedy, and I wonder if people will be less willing to adopt because of all the publicity around the case. I just hope they understand that it's a totally bizarre case that doesn't happen every day. But even with all the confusion, this case keeps bringing the weirdness. Even now, I'm learning that someone else was involved in the murder. Police are now looking for an altar boy from the church choir, which Grizzle and her family attended. So the girl probably didn't act alone. And Grizzle Gwynn's cell phone has also been picked up. It was in the hands of a random local addict after it went missing. It's all really weird. It also reminds me of the Slender Man case we've covered on the channel. It's about a girl who had just as many delusions as the one in this case and acted it out in the worst way possible. Or like another case we covered, a girl asked her school friends to come with her to an empty classroom only to attack her with a box cutter. Sometimes you just don't know what someone else is capable of. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below.